my distinct pleasure to be able to introduce our first speaker, Jessica Potts. Sarah will bring Jessica onto the stage now while I introduce Jessica. Jessica is, as Catherine alluded to in her remarks, Jessica is a recovering government worker who now helps leaders build their dream teams as president of Inspired Strategy Group. Jessica is known for her energy, optimism, and strong belief in pursuing the things you are most passionate about. Jessica's life work is summarized simply as seeing you at your best. Now, before I let Jessica start, I have a couple fun facts to share about her. First, as Catherine mentioned, her background is in economic development, where she spent a decade coaching and training entrepreneurs to realize their goals and dreams. And a fun fact about Jessica is she once interviewed me for this job and didn't pick me. Thanks, Jessica. But anyhow, on another side, Jessica finally has a final point about Jessica. She's achieved a big dream of hers, which is launching her first book, Best Day Ever: Uncovering Your Strengths and Discovering Your Passion. With all that in mind, I really do want to welcome Jessica Potts to the stage. I am so excited to hear you speak, Jessica. And there you are. I love it.
Thanks so much, Rob. Oh, there's the echo. Okay, I think we've handled it. So everyone, welcome. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for that great introduction, Rob. If you are with us, if you are ready to rock this morning, I need you to type into the chat, woohoo, or some other type of pump up type of thing. So get on into the chat. While you're doing that, I also wanted to make an announcement. You are now officially entering a no BS zone. What do I mean by that? I mean that there's a no BS policy in effect. I'm going to shoot straight for the next 40 minutes or so. And if that sounds good to you, I need you to type yes or no in the chat. Yes? Does it sound good? I'm going to assume it's yes. Okay. Final thing, while we're in the chat, I can see it blowing up on my second monitor here. Thank you so much. I want to know, where in the world are you right now? Are you in Niagara? Which community? Are you in Ontario? Are you in Canada? Are you somewhere else worldwide? So put that into the chat so that we can start a wonderful day of connections by connecting with each other. So while I wait for the slight delay that will make things a tiny bit awkward, a little 15-second delay, I want to tell you that my goal for today is just to share some stories. I want this to be a very uplifting time for you. I want to set the tone for a day of entrepreneurial awesomeness. So let's see who's out there. Let's see. I've got Carrie in the Falls, two Carries in the Falls, actually. I see Dan up in Timmins, Vanessa in Welland giving a shout out. Luna, I see you. Brittany in Welland, Chrissy, Cross. Wow, Kurt, we got so many people there. So thank you all for being here. Now, I said that this was an OBS zone, so let's have an honesty moment here. What am I doing? I'll tell you, I'm power posing. This is what I do. This is what I do when I kick off a speech, especially a really important one like today. I do this power pose thing. And why do I do that? Well, I do it because I'm nervous. I don't mind admitting it to you. I get nervous, especially when it's an important one. But some of the best advice I've received came from a mentor of mine, my very first mentor, who said, "You're only nervous because you care." Now how practical and relevant is that? In fact, he deserves a shout out. This is my first mentor on a golf ball. Let me see if you can see it there. His name's Les. Les said, "You're only nervous because you care." And that has never been more relevant than it is to entrepreneurs. There's many things that we entrepreneurs do to make us nervous. And I think that that's because we're hardwired to stretch ourselves. We are constantly needing to stay relevant, constantly needing to adapt to new trends and take advantage of new opportunities within the market. And lately, let's face it, we've been bombarded, absolutely bombarded with change, with decisions, and it's exhausting. So it's times like that where I start to think, boy, do I feel out of my league. Have you ever felt out of your league? I mean, like way out of your league? When this happens to me, especially in business, there's this little inner heckler's voice that starts chanting, imposter, imposter, imposter. Maybe you can relate. Doubt starts to creep in. You start to feel discouraged, overwhelmed, inadequate, or just stuck. It shakes me to my core, and it's made me question my self-worth. I ask myself questions like, am I really ready for this? Am I even cut out for it? Or my very own personal self-doubt question, what makes me so special? That question would go on to become the first in a series of life-changing questions that we'll talk about today. Let me tell you, this imposter thing, it's kind of the story of my life. Successes and struggles, trials and triumphs. I haven't won an Olympic gold medal. I've never climbed Mount Everest, and I certainly haven't swum with the sharks. But what I do have is contentment, happiness, and a deep sense of satisfaction. I found that I get to live my life with no regrets. So today, I've put together some simple strategies for living your best day ever, every day. That's a lofty statement though, right? Best day ever, every day. I mean, Jessica, not every day can be your wedding day or the birth of a child or the big raise or even the day that you launch your business. I get that. But I love my life. I wake up excited. I feel passion and purpose. I feel valued and supported, and I go to bed feeling fulfilled. So today I'm going to tell you a collection of stories and strategies set to these life-changing questions. Those life-changing questions are these questions that I've been asked over time that have both challenged and changed me. Questions like, what makes me so special? And I'm doing this to prove to you that 2020 will be your year to revive and thrive. Did I say 2020? I meant 2021. To revive and thrive and to live your best day ever, every day. So let me tell you about the best day ever formula because it's really simple. It's got 3 C's. Here they are. I hope that my camera will adjust. We start with clarity. Clarity is about connecting to yourself. Understanding and appreciating what makes me so special. And let me tell you, it's really easy to take that what makes me so special for granted because we live with our special stuff every day. Let's talk about confidence. Confidence is about connecting with your context, understanding how to align your values, experiences, talents, and skills with where you are and where you're going. The third one is courage. Courage is about making it happen. It's about connecting with those goals to make an impact through inspired action. Now, what's inspired action anyway? Well, let me give it to you this way because I think that you'll relate. It dawned on me a little while ago that I'm going to knock stuff over in my office. It dawned on me a while ago that I have more goals than I have runway left in my life. Let that one sink in for a second. I have more goals than runway left in my life. And I mean, really, ambition is one thing, but we got to start making choices. Otherwise, you know what happens? We start to burn out, or maybe another significant life event. Our health is so big. So here we are experiencing what I like to call a collective significant life event. And we've all had these choices to make, like choosing to treat this quieter time maybe as an opportunity to realign ourselves with ourselves, to revive and thrive in 2021 with clarity, confidence, and courage. And so alignment really becomes the secret sauce here. Here's our little alignment sauce. Alignment, the secret sauce. Now, I know that this may resemble another bottle, but let's be honest, it's lockdown and props were scarce. So alignment is smooth and effortless. It's energizing and it just feels right. Without it, there could be enhanced feelings of imposter syndrome. So alignment becomes something really important to us. And when I say imposter, what I'm really saying is that self-doubt. The worst part about self-doubt is that it makes decisions or decision-making overwhelming. Bam, there it is. So we need to be clear about who we are. We need to be confident about how we can apply that in a relevant way. And we need to have the courage to take inspired action with enthusiastic yeses and with confident no's. Does that make sense? Let's do this. All right. So everything is shorter in the virtual space, so I'm gonna skip over a few parts here. Like growing up as the underdog, being sort of disengaged in high school. I may or may not have failed grade 11 gym. Okay, I did. How about when I chose my college major? I overheard somebody who I thought was very confident, somebody that I admired. I overheard her choosing her major, and so I copied that. I mean, what I'm trying to tell you is that the first 20 years of my life was basically a masterclass in imposter syndrome and self-doubt. That's really what it comes down to. College ended well, thanks to that mentor on that little golf ball. You're only nervous because you care. But my career launch was more of a fizzle than a bang. So that's the quick overview of the first 20 years. It was my second job where we'll start our story today. And so we pick up that story with my authenticity crisis in progress. I wasn't being true to myself. In fact, I was totally misaligned. This authenticity crisis actually continued on an ordinary day, just like any other, but this was a day that would change the course of my life forever. And it started in a grade 10 careers class. See, as Catherine and Rob mentioned, I used to be involved in managing an entrepreneurial resource center, much like today's hosts. And part of my job was to enthusiastically promote youth entrepreneurship. Now, keep in mind, this was right on the cusp of entrepreneurship being cool, right before social media became all the rage and it became more accessible to start businesses. So there I am, grade 10 careers class, and a 13-year-old girl asks me a question that hit me like a punch in the face. Here she was. Excuse me, if you think that small business is so great, why don't you have one? Whoa. This would become one of the most punctuating questions in my 40 and a third years of life. Mic drop. Imposter, imposter, imposter. I mean, I was still figuring out my own career. I hadn't even considered entrepreneurship. But those 13 words, if you think small business is so great, why don't you have one? Those 13 words, they haunted me. It echoed in my head. It rented space in my brain. I did think small business was great, but what would I even do? I mean, I hadn't even sorted out what makes me so special. What was I passionate enough about? I was surrounded by people like you, passionate entrepreneurs, daily. The single most passionate group of people I've ever known, relentlessly pursuing their dreams. And so this next life-changing question really became, how will I follow my passion? That was prominent advice in my day. I mean, I started studying passion in an attempt to fast-track my success. And while I want to triumphantly tell you, just go out and follow your passion, that's the advice I want to give you. I promise none of that. We are in a BS-free zone. The results of my studying passion were both fascinating and frustrating. Here's the deal. It turns out you have to do your time. There's no magic passion fairy waving a magic wand. There's no conveyor belt of passion where you can be like, oh, I'll take one of these passions and maybe two of these. Here's the rub. Follow your passion implies that passion precedes everything. But if you look at most successful people, we find that their paths were complicated and evolved over time. So the real life-changing question becomes, how will I discover my passion? And so with that in mind, I plugged along. In my late 20s, I still employed traditionally. I was asked and invited to join a business group. Now, this wasn't just any business group. This was a new business group. It was for young people, which I qualified for at the time. But these were decorated up-and-comers. And I was so honored to be amongst this group of overachievers. But I was also very humbled, self-conscious, and full of doubt. There it was again. Imposter, imposter, imposter. 6 months into being in this amazing business group, one of my friends, in fact, the one who had invited me to join the group, said to me, "So, what do you think?" And I said, "Oh, I think it's great." I answered honestly, but not completely. And he was on to me. He says, "But," I said, "Well, you guys are really awesome. But if I'm being totally honest, I'm still just sitting here trying to figure out what makes me so special. How have I earned my seat at this table?" And in that instant, he immediately pushed away from his desk, reached back to his filing cabinet, and he handed me a book that included the concept that would change my life. Problem was, I didn't know it yet. So this is how the conversation went. I said, "Oh, what's this?" And he said, "It's a self-help book." And I said, "Oh, awesome. Another self-help book." You see, I had done a few of these during my authenticity crisis and passion problem. And so he said, no, this one with the assessment, it's amazing. It's going to change your life. And so, given that I had done so many of these, I promptly tossed that book in the back seat of my pickup truck and went on with my day. But luckily for me, that friend was persistent. It was one of his talents. And so I ended up doing the assessment. And you know what happened? It was a magic moment of realization. I promised you no BS, so I am not exaggerating. I had this magic moment of realization, this epiphany, this aha moment where I finally understood what makes me so special. I was blown away when I read it. It pinpointed and explained the exact parts of my personality that consistently contributed to my success. So this concept is now known as, well, I mean, it's always been known, but it's known as strengths-based development. And what strengths-based development says is that everyone has talent. Let that sink in for a minute. Everyone has talent. Talent shows up in the unique ways we think, feel, and behave. Everyone has talent. It shows up in the unique ways we think, feel, and behave. And it's based on 50 plus years of Gallup research. What's Gallup best known for? Their opinion polls. You probably recognize that name. So it's no surprise that Gallup has a huge body of work around human behavior. Here's how it started. Dr. Don Clifton, back 50, 60 years ago, started to study psychology, and he found that there was a problem. He was at the University of Nebraska, and he started looking at all of these textbooks on psychology, and he said, all of these books are about what's wrong with people. Where's the stuff about what's right with people? And so he started to form his own body of research. His base research question was, how can we work better together? How can we work better together? And what they found, him and his team found 5,000 responses that answered that question, how can we work better together? And what they did, yeah, that was a sippy cup. No BS, sippy cup. He boiled those 5,000 responses into 34 talent themes. And this assessment gives you your top 5. So here's what one of mine sounds like. And I know we've got a fan who shares this. Vanessa, this is you and me, baby. This one is called Woo. I don't know if it'll adjust, but Woo is one of Gallup's 34 different talent themes. And this is what it says. People exceptionally talented in the Woo theme love the challenge of meeting new people and winning them over. They derive satisfaction from breaking the ice and making a connection with someone. So Woo is all about being socially motivated. But here's something that we have to understand, that Woo and all of our talent themes are kind of like a coin, and there's two sides to every coin. With my Woo coin, those innate ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving can either make me the most charming person in the room or the most annoying person in the room. Some of you are like, yeah, I get that. So we don't need to leave this to chance. This is the thing. Whether you're going to get the Oh, that was a really good toss. It's possible that we're taking our talents for granted. So don't leave it to chance. We got to figure out what those talent coins are, because it's easy to take for granted because they seem so ordinary. But our talents aren't ordinary at all. These are not personality quirks that we just write off. Oh, that's just how she is. These are your talents at play. And so now I have a warning, because failing to harness those talents, failing to get them under control, threatens your positive outcomes. Now, here's our next. I've got some examples for you. Maybe you're a numbers person. So what I want you to do is, if this resonates with you, maybe you're a numbers person, a people person, or an ideas person. Feel free to drop that in the chat. If you relate to being a numbers person or a people person or an ideas person, drop that in the chat and I'll tell you a little bit about it and the caution that we have. So if you are a natural numbers person, you may have a flair for finding trends and patterns. But be careful that that love of analysis doesn't prevent you from taking action while it's still timely. Maybe you're a people person. You find it easy to develop relationships, but be cautious that your love for building connections doesn't cost you deals at the expense of profit. So I can see people, ideas and people person, you can be both. Maybe you're an ideas person, over here, and you're skilled at coming up with brilliant concepts. Be careful that your love for the creative process doesn't stop you from producing tangible results. Because these examples that I've just given you are examples of what strengths-based development would consider weaknesses. So in strengths-based development, it's not about compensating for what you aren't. It's about harnessing and managing what you are, the two sides of the same coin. It was tails, by the way, if anyone was curious. And so by focusing on what's right with you, instead of fixating on what's wrong with you, when I did this for myself, things became clear that were once foggy. That doubt and skepticism started to fade away and confidence started to emerge. And where I once had felt lost, I now had direction. So it's kind of like a cycle, you'll see it's kind of similar to our 3 C's: clarity, confidence, direction was what happened down here. And then because I experienced success, that was very validating. It gives us more clarity, confidence, and direction. So now that little inner heckler's voice in your head that used to say, imposter, 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 now has to start working a lot harder. Finally, I could articulate my worth. Better, I had an action plan for success, and it was time to put it to use. And so I have to tell you, again, in the spirit of honesty, this was back in 2008. The timing for the assessment was great. I was in one of the biggest ruts in my life. My work wife had moved on. My marriage was rocky. I had very little mentorship and guidance. And the worst part of it all was I had colleague envy. I was so envious of a colleague in a similar role. He knew what to do. And worse, he was better than me at it. Even worse than all of that, he was so passionate. It was infuriating for me and really layered on to that whole imposter syndrome thing. I needed something I could be passionate about, and now it was time for me to discover my passion. So I was going to try something a little bit different. I was going to try playing to my strengths, just like that assessments report had said, and put my talents to use. And so I did. I started to rally myself, my clients, my community around an event. Guided by that strengths report, I put together a plan and I started to reach out. And the first person I pitched, I ended up with 5 figures of support. Well, you can just imagine how excited I was. I ran into the next office where one of my colleagues was, and I said, "Oh my gosh, today is the best day ever." The next day, it was more of the same. I contacted more partners and found myself running into her office. "Today is the best day ever." And the more I kept telling people, and more people kept telling me that my passion and enthusiasm was contagious, which was exactly what that report had said. The event was a huge success. It was a big hit, and my strengths-based development was ultimately proven. So the next life-changing question for you is, how will I play to my strengths? I was on fire. I mean, I was lit up with this whole thing. I was so energized. I felt so alive, and I wanted to work harder because of it. It was absolutely amazing. And here's the really magic part. It makes you feel awesome. So operating from a point of your strengths, instead of focusing on your weaknesses and what you don't have, operating and managing and harnessing those strengths just makes you feel awesome. But let me tell you, I wouldn't get to ride that wave for long. My life was about to take a big turn. First of all, I applied for a new job. And second of all, I was about to trade my signature red pickup truck for a minivan. Can anyone guess why? Why does any girl from Northern Ontario trade in her pickup truck for a minivan? There's only one answer, of course. I was pregnant. And not to gloss over the next 2.5 years, but it was quite a bit of a blur. I wasn't a bad mom, but I wasn't a great mom to my babies. Sidebar, I'm happy to report I'm a great mom to an 8 and 10-year-old, but that's today. I loved my babies and I couldn't wait to be back at work. And so maybe ironically enough, it was April 1st, April Fool's Day, when I visited my office getting ready to come back from mat leave. And I ran into my new boss. And I talked to that boss and said, listen, is there any way that we can talk about maybe some flex time? Like, for example, my first Wednesday back, there's this event for entrepreneurs in the evening, but that would mean that I wouldn't get to see my babies or put them to bed. So maybe could I take the Thursday morning off? And as is common in the bureaucracy, the answer was a no. And so I realized in that moment that there wasn't alignment for me and this job anymore. And so, that was kind of an unsettling feeling, but I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. A week later, I spoke to a friend, a colleague who I'd kept in touch with over my maternity leave. And he had just had the best day ever. And I said, what happened? He said, we asked for funding. We got way more than we expected. We're hiring this role and this role and this role. And we need a marketing person, but there's a problem. I need senior level marketing and I only have junior level budget. I went, oh, okay. So we hung up the phone and I got to thinking. And 10 minutes later, I called back that friend and I said, listen, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you your senior level marketing for junior level budget because I'm going to do it part-time. You're going to be my first client. I'm going to quit my job. And it was kind of like that. It was kind of stumbling over myself with excitement. And you know what his answer was? How much? And so I had my first client. A week after I realized that there was misalignment with my bureaucratic job, I had my first client. I didn't even have a business, but I had my first client. And so it would be April 22nd, 2013, that I registered my business and became the accidental entrepreneur. You see, sometimes life sends you significant events, and we need to choose to see them as opportunities. And this one was really unique because for once, I felt clear and confident. That imposter thing, it wasn't even there. My life had changed, and in order to balance my priorities, I needed to have some fundamental change. And so it just made sense. It just felt right. Things were aligned. And so my life-changing question then became, what will I do when I have nothing to lose? Even better, what if we never lose? What if we adopted that attitude that we never lose? What if failure isn't the opposite of success, but rather it's part of success? There's a mantra down in Silicon Valley where I spent a little bit of time a few years ago. They say, fail fast and move on. It's all about the iterative process. And one of my favorite quotes is one that Nelson Mandela said, I never lose, either I win or I learn. So what will you do when you have nothing to lose? Now, I've saved one of the most important life-changing questions for last. What will I say no to? Sometimes I get asked, what are some of the toughest decisions that you've made? And in my 20s, it was really easy to say yes to everything. So there weren't many hard decisions. But then in my 30s, kids, business, community, all of a sudden there were competing priorities. And you heard me say at the beginning, I have more goals than I have runway left in my life. So we need to evaluate things differently. There are some tough no's that have come. I had the distinct pleasure of teaching at Niagara College and said no to that so that I could focus on teaching within my own business. But it was leaving that business group that was really one of the hardest decisions of my life. And I did that because I wanted to join another business community, this one called the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, or CAPS, as you'll hear me refer to it. And boy, let me tell you, when I got to CAPS, did I ever struggle to see my value. I felt so out of my league. There I was with sports heroes, titans of business, doctors, lawyers, real estate moguls, soldiers, and decorated human beings. I left my safe harbor for another round of imposter syndrome. But this time, I had a formula and I had a plan. I found that the small talk at these events was a little bit awkward. So I dug into that clarity piece and said, what can I do? What can I do that's going to light me up, that's going to tap into my strengths? And so I got the confidence to start helping at the registration desk. This helped me get to know a lot of people and for them to know me. I'm great at helping people belong. So this worked out perfectly. Kurt Kasuchi, I see you in chat. One of my students is here. Ultimately, that experience helping at the registration desk gave me the courage to run for the board of directors for the Toronto chapter of the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, the biggest chapter in Canada. And let me tell you, success and validation came with a big milestone. I not only got elected to the board of directors, but this amazing group of people helped me launch my first book. And so, thanks, Rob. COVID, again, with no BS in mind, COVID did help me say no to a lot of things in order to get this little guy. But, it's Warren Buffett's words that really ring true. The most successful people say no to almost everything. And that's because those people are clear about how to maximize their impact. And we know that clarity, confidence, and courage will help us grow into the people that we want to be so that we can revive and thrive and set ourselves up to live the best day ever, every day. So keep shining bright, y'all. Pat yourselves on the back for investing in yourselves and being here today. We were able to cover 5 of the 10 life-changing questions. I'm going to put a link in the chat so you can get all 10 of those life-changing questions. And feel free to pick up the book on Amazon.ca, Best Day Ever book by Jessica Potts. Finally, thank you so much for making today a best day ever for me. Sending it over to you, Rob.
Jessica, thank you so much. Wow, what a way to kick off the day. Incredible energy and really important message that you sent. I'm lucky enough to have a copy of the book thanks to your Kickstarter campaign and have been enjoying it. And really, I can tell by the chat that this is resonating with a lot of people. It's one of the things we hear about a lot is the talk of imposter syndrome and starting as an entrepreneur. So you sharing that was fantastic. Couple questions for you, Jessica, that have come through. We were going to move over to a session, but there have been a few little technical glitches that we hope we have fixed for Daryl's presentation, where people will be able to interact live with Daryl and ask some questions. So for the next couple minutes, I am going to ask you just a couple questions that have come through on the chat. But first, there are a number of people playing the Goose Chase game that have downloaded it onto their phone. They're playing the game. They're trying to win some additional prizes. There are a variety of prizes through the day that'll be announced at noon for those that are still here. And one of the prizes is based on you. We want to know what your favorite animal is, or your favorite bird, maybe.
Oh, so do you want me to say it now, or are we building suspense?
No, well, it's I'm eager to hear too. So, because I'm playing along in the Goose Chase game as well, and I want to be one of the first to answer the question. Although I'll give people a head start. So, there's the suspense.
Well, my favorite animal is, in fact, a bird. It is the hummingbird. So there y'all go. Collect that one in your Goose Chase. And I downloaded the app, but I'm going to see if I can win with that answer too.
There you go. There you go. We'll do the same for Daryl's talk. And but a real serious question is: you're a business owner. You've left the security of a government job and started your own business. And you've been through a lot of the ups and downs, and you've been through COVID. How has COVID affected you and your business?
This is the point where I think everybody just kind of goes, how is it affected? I mean, like the short answer is there was more than a 50% drop in revenue in a year that was supposed to be a big breakout year. So, we have a joke in my speaking community where every time you say the word pivot, somebody pretends to take a shot. And so there's been a lot of this discussion of pivoting because we had just settled on a strategy on March 4th, 2020, 1 week before I delivered a very similar version to this keynote at the Hamilton Enterprise Center's Success in the City event. So that was meant to be the first in a huge launch of my business, or relaunch of my business. And so it meant pivoting on the spot. And for the first 6 weeks or so, I would say I was just a puddle. I like many of us, I had no idea what to do with myself. Do you ride it out? Do you, do you start to adapt? And really, I started to study grief at that time and started to examine how myself and my clients were moving through the grief cycle. And I think what's been different in 2021, because I had a very similar experience during our lockdown, but getting to that acceptance stage faster made things a whole lot easier. So how can we, one of the best sayings that I've heard is a fellow named David Avrin says, in disruption happens to us, innovation happens by us. And so really trying to lean into that innovation. How can we innovate and adapt by choice rather than reactively being disrupted?
Beautiful. Thank you. Going to ask just one more. And what I'd really love to hear is, I've got your book here. I've been flipping through it. It's got a lot of great tips. I want to know what your favorite lesson, quote, or tip is from the book.
Oh, there's a lot. That's a tough one. But I think that, so recovering perfectionist here, I'm going to have an honesty moment. I haven't talked about this publicly. I'm holding a first draft of my book right here. And on page 82, it might be tough for the camera to pick this up, but hopefully you can see the shadow. There's a Post-it note. There is a Post-it note in my book. Why is there a Post-it note in my book? Well, because we messed up. We put the same quote in chapter 7 and in chapter 8. So it was probably just a formatting thing. It got missed in the editing process. And so when I think about my favorite quote, it is channel frustration to innovation. And I say that I think it's really appropriate for this group, channel frustration. We all look for our pain points with our target market. How can we channel the frustration of ourselves or of our audience into innovation that will help us grow and thrive? And so I love that, because when I found the error, this recovering perfectionist didn't freak out. I just immediately said, you know what, we're going to get a Post-it note. We're going to cover it up. We're going to own the mistake. Post-it notes are on brand, and off we go. People will understand, or they won't. And so that's probably my favorite quote, particularly for this audience.
I have to say, a couple things. Well, I have a limited edition book, so I've got to hold it. I think you've autographed it for me too, so I have to hold on to that so I can say I knew you when. And the Post-it note, I actually thought that was genius, because I was flipping through the book trying to decide where I wanted to dive in, and there's this Post-it note. I'm like, of course Jessica would do that. So, so Jessica, we have to stop here. We're going to take a 10-minute break now. It's 10:03, so at 10:13 or 10:14, 10:13 we will resume again. Just a few little instructions for everybody listening. There are 2 panels coming up after the break. You will go over to sessions and join one of those 2 panels, and you'll be able to watch either Sarah moderate one or Dean moderate the other. Also, during the break, we encourage you to do a couple things. There is a networking opportunity here at this virtual conference. It's also on the left-hand side of your screen. You can click networking, and you will be randomly matched with somebody else at the event for a short introduction with them. You can stay up to 3 minutes or leave very quickly if you have other things to do. And so by going through that random matching, we hope that you meet somebody interesting and somebody that can help you in your business. Last but not least, during the break, we see there are a number of people that have downloaded the Goose Chase app and are playing along at home on that. And so there's some opportunities to participate in that. Jessica, I can't thank you enough for doing this for us today. It was a marvelous talk. It was everything I hoped for. We're really looking forward to the panels next. We're really looking forward to Daryl wrapping up the day. But thanks so much, Jessica. It's greatly appreciated that you were here for us today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Rob. It's truly an I've arrived moment to be able to speak on this side of the stage to a group that has been so dear to me. So thanks for all the hard work of the Niagara Falls and St. Catharines Enterprise Centers for putting on great events like this.
Awesome.